Hey, little girl, what are you up to? What are you up to? It's Mama Louise. What? So I'm doing a rewatch of True Detective Season 1, because that's the only season of True Detective I rewatch. One of my favorite pieces of fiction of all time. I fucking love True Detective Season 1. Just a really, really good TV show. I don't want to call it a perfect piece of fiction, because sometimes I don't feel like they quite nailed the landing of it. I'm always a little fuzzy on the last chapter, but it is still one of my favorite pieces of narrative fiction in any medium. A lot of people talk about True Detective. I think it made a really big impact on the television and narrative landscapes. If you can hear that crow out there, I think he's yelling at a raccoon. But the thing that really gets to me, that it seems like nobody ever talks about, and I feel like I should be making like a more official video about this for a fucking video channel on YouTube, but like True Detective is clearly influenced by a lot of great comic books, or at least a lot of great comic book writers. People talk about Alan Moore, they talk about Grant Morrison. I've never heard people really talk with the creator, Nick Pizzolatto, about this. I've heard in a couple of interviews he'll kind of reference, oh, Mabel needs some playtime. Mabel needs some playtime. But I never hear enough people talking about Warren Ellis. Now, of course, Warren Ellis's name has become a little problematic in the past few years due to his shitty treatment of women, but at the same time, we can't erase the impact that he's had on fiction, and specifically on all the writers who have been fans of his writing. When I watch True Detective, I see very clear references to the Warren Ellis and J.H. Williams comic book Desolation Jones. The protagonists have very similar outlooks and very similar backstories. Same again with the comic book Fell, which Ellis did with the artist Ben Templesmith. You can't read those books and know that Nick Pizzolatto was into cool adult comic books and not see the connection between those books and True Detective. Am I a fucking crazy person? Nobody ever asks him this. It's the same thing with that. I've never seen an interview where somebody says to Quentin Tarantino, hey, so Inglourious Bastards is clearly based on Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos. Wouldn't that be cool to talk about? How come nobody ever talks about comic books with creators who are clearly into comic books? How come nobody ever says to Nick Pizzolatto, so what do you think about the fucking Invisibles? Because you've clearly fucking read the Invisibles, so why don't we fucking talk about it? Same thing with the Duffer Brothers who created Stranger Things. Does anybody want to sit down with those guys and say, hey, you clearly love the Invisibles, so why don't we fucking talk about it? It's weird, man. It's like a fucking conspiracy of people not wanting to talk about good fiction. Bratty little Mabel Louise had to give a shout in the hallway, and I had to tell her not to yell in the hallway, because that's what rotten little dogs do. Look at that rotten little dog. She's rotten to the core. Fucking point is, man, Warren Ellis, comic books, Grant Morrison, The Invisibles, Desolation Jones, Fell. There are works of comic book narrative fiction out there which have had such a profound effect on all the media landscape and culture. And we're not fucking talking about this stuff. We're not touching on it. James Gunn finally fucking referenced Warren Ellis's authority in talking about the MCU or the fucking DCU moving forward. But like, fuck, man. I think the thing that gets me is, again, that these things have had massive impacts on people, authors, creators, across the fucking board. Not just in comic books, but in movies and television shows. And we're still not talking about it. We don't talk about fucking the influence that Grant Morrison had on Stranger Things, even though he's clearly the fucking grandfather of the fucking series. Everybody wants to talk about like, oh, wow, it's like Steven Spielberg or the Goonies or fucking E.T. or shit like that. And it's like, guys, there's a fucking world outside of those fucking movies and shows that you all fucking know. There's a world outside of basic entertainment that's fucking great. It's called fucking comic books that aren't about Spider-Man and Superman. And they're right out there. You can fucking read them. The Boys is a huge series. Fucking Preacher was a huge series. I don't understand why this shit seems so occult, you know? Like, it seems like nobody, the mainstream doesn't understand how to handle it. I don't fucking know, man. It's weird. Nerd media has become so fucking big, and yet there's these huge gaps in it out there where people just don't seem to be aware of shit. Well, I'm gonna change all that. I don't know. Or fucking do something. I don't know. Oh, now she's done yelling. She's just a sad little sleepy girl. What a little boober. Hi, boober.